Okay, good evening. This is the lottery for the affordable homeownership units at Stockbridge Landing. My name is David Cashman. I'm with SEB Housing, and we're going to get started here in just a moment. For the household, I think there's one household, there's 3 households or 5 households now on the YouTube, which is great, on the live stream. I think one of you is also on the phone. I'm getting a little bit of feedback because there's a slight delay. So if you don't mind maybe turning one down or choosing one or the other, that would be hugely helpful to me just because the delay is a little distracting. Thank you. Appreciate that. So I take it everyone can hear me, which is great. So this is the lottery. Congrats on getting this far. I know that the application is demanding. There's a lot of documentation that's required. So great job getting that all in and having a totally complete application. Let me just give you a little bit of information about what to expect here and who was, how many folks were in the lottery and what the waiting list will look like, just so you have a sense. I'm sure people want to know. And then we'll do the actual drawing. So as you know, there were 17, there's going to be a total of 17 available affordable units in this development. In total, we had 7 completed applications. So that means if you were one of the 7 households who submitted a complete application, you will be moving forward to the next step in this process. So congrats on that. Everyone will be moving forward. You're not there yet, but you've certainly taken a very big step, which is great. Among the 7 households who applied and were eligible, there were 2 households that indicated they qualified for who did qualify for local preference. Both were type 2 households. Okay, so I can tell you already, without even having done the drawing, that according to program requirements, those 2 households are going to have the top 2 waiting list positions, and therefore will have the top 2 selections of the affordable units, or will be the first 2 to get to choose which affordable units they want. There were 5 other households, obviously. So there will be 2 different drawings. There'll be a local preference drawing and a general pool drawing. Of the 7 households in total, 3 are type 2 and 4 are type 1. So that means of non-local preference households, 1 is a type 2 and the other 4 are type 1. Okay, so there's only going to be 1 waiting list. There's only a need for 1 waiting list, given that there aren't as many eligible households in the lottery as there are available units. And given the household type and breakdowns, we don't need 2 separate waiting lists. So there'll just be 1 waiting list. I will send that to you within a couple hours of doing this drawing. If you have an email, you'll get it tonight. And it looks like everyone does. So just check your email before the night is over, and you should have an email from SEB Housing with the waiting list. It'll show all of your application numbers in green, because that means you are moving forward to the next step in this process. Is there anyone that doesn't know their lottery application number before we do the lottery drawing? If you know it, that's great. You don't need to tell me, and please don't tell me what it is. But if you don't know it, if you forgot it, please let me know. Great. Okay. So I'm not seeing any replies, so I'm going to assume everyone knows their lottery number. But if that's wrong, you can let me know. So like I said, I'll send you the waiting list tonight. Everyone's going to be highlighted in green. That means even though you've done the full application process with us, we still need to send your file to Mass Housing, who's the program administrator for this project, to get their final stamp of approval. Usually this process takes about 1 to 2 weeks from when we submit the files to them. So we'll submit the files first thing tomorrow, and hopefully we'll have an answer from them in 2 weeks from then. And at that point, if there's anything that's missing from a file, or a household just needs to provide a little something, we'll let you know. That's not usually the case, but it does happen from time to time that we neglected to ask for something that Mass Housing thinks we should have. Again, not common, but every once in a while we miss something. If that happens, you're just going to have to be ready to track that piece of documentation down, and we'll let you know. But again, we hope that's not the case. Assuming they say everything looks great, all of these households have our stamp of approval, then we can start putting households through the next step, which is for them to engage in the home buying process with the sales team. Please take a note. SEB Housing we're not the developer. We don't have an ownership stake in this. We're not the sales team. We don't set deadlines for the reservation of your unit or your purchase and sale, or the deadlines for closing on the unit. And we obviously aren't the developer, so we can't control when those things happen. I say that because this is a new construction and development timelines can change. And so once everyone is certified as program eligible, and we then move you into the next step, which is to put you in touch with the sales team and get you engaged in the home buying process with them, we SEB Housing are still involved, but that's primarily to make sure that you do one final program screening. You have to do a final update of your file before you close, just to make sure that your income or assets didn't experience some huge increase in the interim and put you so that you're no longer program eligible. Hopefully this is not coming as a surprise to anyone watching this, because hopefully you saw it in the informational materials, and I'll reiterate it in the materials that I sent you tonight, but you do have to remain program eligible up through closing. So if you won the lottery, 2 weeks from now, that's great, but you wouldn't be eligible for an affordable unit. But anyway, my point is that that's SEB's sort of primary function once we pass you off to the sales teams, to make sure that final second program certification, and it's not going to be as thorough as the first one, and you've already done it before. It's mostly just an update, so don't think like, oh, I can't believe I have to go through that whole certification again. It's an update, not a sort of a start from scratch. But that's our main involvement, is to make sure that happens, and we track things so that we know when that needs to happen. I bring this up again just for purposes of looping back to this point of this is new construction. The dates and times for signing a reservation and closing on a unit are between you and the developer. And so ultimately, if there are issues with that, if you have questions, please direct those to the development team, because we SEB don't control it. And the information that we have is the same information that you would have, which comes from the sales team. Okay, so enough about that. Are there any questions? Does anyone have any questions before we go ahead and do the 2 lottery drawings? I can tell you these are not going to take very much time. It's going to be really quick, actually. So if anyone has any questions, please let me know. Also, I should just let you know that I did get an update from the development team recently. Due to COVID, they are having some delays in their expected schedule. The first unit, which is going to be a type A, is expected in roughly December or January to be done. So there is one unit that could be, closed on quite soon. After that, things push back a little bit. The next unit after so the next 2 units will be type F1 units. I'm told those will be ready in June and August, or are expected. And a type B unit, which is expected to be ready in August. And the development team states that they hope the remainder of the affordable units will be completed in the spring of 2021. So there is some delay. Hopefully that's a good thing. Households have some time. I imagine most households aren't ready to kind of move right away. So there's a little bit of lag time built in. But again, remember that when your turn comes up, you'll be able to select from any of the available affordable units, regardless when that unit is going to be ready. Okay. So without any further ado, I don't see any questions. I think I've probably talked enough, so I'll just go ahead and do the lottery drawing. Remember, I said there's only going to be one waiting list. We don't need to have two, given that there are only 7 households. I do still need, because of program requirements, I have to do 2 separate drawings, one for the local preference households and then a separate one for all households. So it may seem a little redundant for the 2 local preference households. You'll end up hearing me call them twice, but ultimately there's just going to be one waiting list with all 7 households on it. Okay, so let me just grab the 2 local preference households who were number A02 and A05. Just double check that here. Okay. And just so you can see here, it's going to be out of sight on the camera, but this is our very sophisticated lottery box. I have all of your application numbers on note cards. I've just put the 2 local preference households in the box, and I'll draw them. And I will show the cards as I pull them out. Here we go. Don't blink, you might miss it. Okay, first one picked is A.005. And then the other one's going to be A.002. Okay, I'm going to put them in with all of the other numbers now. We just shuffle these up a little bit. 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Okay, get all 7 in there. Shake them up so you can see it. Okay, so this is the general drawing I'm doing now. First one is A.005. Okay, this was a local preference household too. We know they're going to have the first spot on the waiting list. A.002. Okay. A.001. A.004. A.007. A.003. And then last but not least is A.006. All right, that's it. Quick. But again, good news is everyone is moving forward in the next step. I will send you the waiting list in the next few hours here. So just check your email. The waiting list will have your lottery application number on it. At this point, that's just going to dictate the order that you get invited to move forward to engage in the home buying process with the sales team. So I expect that within a week or two, we'll have confirmation or information from Mass Housing on all 7 lottery households. Hopefully they'll say everyone looks good, everyone's approved to move forward. And then that very first household on the waiting list we'll reach out to, put you in touch with the sales team to engage in the home buying process. Once that household has reserved the unit of their choice, we will then put the next household on the clock, and we'll move in that fashion more or less until all 7 households have reserved units. If the sales team says that for whatever reason they need a little bit of a break in between when a household reserves a unit and when they are ready for the next household to be put on the clock, there could be a little delay, but we'll try and keep everyone sort of informed of timelines as best we can. I would reiterate now too, if you haven't already, if you want to engage, the advice of a lawyer to represent you through the home buying process, it is, recommended. Certainly, if that's something you want to do, not a bad idea to review, some of the documentation and just make sure that your interests are represented. And if you have questions generally, you can always direct them, to SEB Housing. We want to make sure that everyone has the information that they need to move forward confidently in this process. So again, congrats on making it this far. The great news is all of you are moving forward, and I will get you more information tonight. Are there any questions before we wrap this up? All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming out, and we will be in touch. Have a great night.